Well, here we are in Bingham Park in Kitchener to attend the Greenfest Rock Music Festival. 5 days of fun, sounds, and frolics, Christian style.
And this is a big event for Christian rock fans in Canada because a lot of the acts that are appearing here only make it up to Canada maybe once a year. Bands like Undercover,
DeGarmo and Key,
Larry Norman,
Crumbacker, Striper, and various others. It's also an opportunity for people to get together and have a decent, good time instead of having to endure the usual sinister sights and sounds that have become all too much a typical part of the heavy rock festivals of today. Now, the best part of it all, however, I have to say, is that it gives us an opportunity to go camping.
This ought to be a challenge.
If you go down in the woods today, you're sure of a big surprise. If you go down in the woods today, you'd better go in disguise. For every bear that ever there was will gather there for certain, because today's the day the teddy bears have their picnic. Every teddy bearsman good is sure of a treat today. There's lots of marvelous things to eat and some wonderful games to play. Beneath the trees where nobody sees, they'll hide and seek as long as they please, 'cause that's the way the teddy bears have their picnic.
I have this inkling, and maybe you can tell me whether I'm right or not, in that most of the bands here performing at this festival, are they preaching to a converted audience, or are they actually trying to minister and convert people to be born-again Christians?
I know the majority of the groups all would like to do nothing else but play and bring the message to non-Christian kids. But they are going to have Christian kids follow them. There's no question about that. And that we take with it. In a festival like this, we can figure that the ratio is a good 3-4 to 1. That perhaps our large majority of our kids are Christians, but a large majority of the kids that are Christians bring their non-Christian friends with them. And that's really the desire of most of the groups, because as much as we view it as music, we also view it as that opportunity to minister to kids. The conversion isn't done by the bands. The conversion, that can only be done by God. We're there as the tools and implements that He uses, perhaps, to do that and for that to happen.
When I heard we were coming to a Christian rock festival, I pictured a very peaceable event, not the usual kind of rock festival where kids are puking on the side of the road and setting fire to each other's tents and stuff. Well, sure enough, that's been the case, but I was surprised to see in front of the stage, a good 20 feet in front of the stage, there's a security barrier, not something I would normally associate with a peaceable event. How come?
Our kids, it's not a rock festival, it may not be, it's a rock festival, may not have any violence, but our kids still like to jump up and down, have a good time, and really enjoy themselves. And we just don't like the idea of them coming down on top of the stage or so, because they're going to enjoy it. So it's a different type of an atmosphere at our festival or at Christian Rock Festival than what there would be at another festival.
What kind of different atmosphere?
I think it's an atmosphere that many of us are here just totally relaxed. We're not searching anymore. We found, per se, the answer. We're not doing the searching. We're here enjoying what God has given us, what we believe and what our faith is based in.
I was feeling kind of restless, so I went out for a walk, and I ran into a stranger, and for hours we just talked. He said, I've waited for this moment all my life. This is it.
To add more fat to the fire of the music censorship controversy, DeGarmo and Key recently ran afoul of the screening committees at both MTV in the States and Much Music in Canada. This scene, featuring the devil burning up, was cited as the reason for the banning of the video 666. The question is, doesn't the video convey an obvious Christian message? And isn't the decision inconsistent with a more recent decision to air the Thompson Twins' Don't Mess with Dr. Dream, an anti-heroin video?
That was the basic question that we had to MTV when they first banned it. Because, I mean, we said to them, hey, you know, there's a burn scene in The Wizard of Oz. You remember Scarecrow?
Yeah, he went up in smoke.
He went up in smoke, and nobody really thought that was violent. I don't think there was anything graphically violent about the burn scene in 666. There were no, you know, blood and guts and things of that nature, and the guy came out of it okay by the time it was over.
The video was already being rented by churches and playing on the Christian Broadcasting Network and PTL Network. They were playing it all over the nation. And suddenly MTV came back and said, it's too violent. We thought it was a joke at first. But then they said, well, no, we just really don't want this burn scene in there. And we thought, you know, perhaps they're just being prejudiced because we're a Christian group. And I don't know the real story, but other than when we edited it out, they began to play it, and they're playing competition, so we're happy. And as you know, we substituted for the burn scene some scenes from a nuclear holocaust. And they didn't think the nuclear holocaust was unacceptable, and they said, sure, nuclear holocaust, fine. Burn scene's not fine, but nuclear holocaust, we'll go for that. And of course, Wall Street Journal caught on to that and said, hey, there's something wrong here. There's something a little bit weird about this. And we think there's something weird about it too, but we're not going to ask any questions because they're playing the video, so.
The son of a Colorado Baptist minister, Steve Taylor is an established star in the Christian music firmament and played at the latest annual Greenbelt Festival in Britain before 25,000 people. He's an outspoken satirist, especially critical of televangelists, whom he believes turn people away from Christianity. His songs also contain vivid descriptions of his travels, like this one, Over My Dead Body.
Over my dead body, redemption draweth nigh. Over my dead body, I hear a battle cry. Low up higher, finding the rise up from the ashes to ashes again.
That one came about from when I was in Poland and was walking around in the town square in Warsaw and came across a courtyard next to a church, and on the ground in the courtyard was a big cross made of just thousands of flowers, and there were these photographs of a young man pinned to the cross, and I asked the guy who this young man was and why was his photograph pinned to the cross, and he told me the story of this young man. Had been a member of the church there, and he was taking food supplies to prisoners from the church that had been imprisoned by the government, and they were being underfed in jail, and the secret police found out, and they took him out and beat him to death. So that was where the song came from.
More from Greenfest with the Christian Riders Motorcycle Club and Larry Norman next on The New Music.
You gotta watch what you're doing. You know that. Yeah. She was sweet as could be, but she fell for boys like a chainsaw tree. She listened to their lies and she was fooled by their charms. Well, now she's sitting with a baby in her arms. You gotta watch what you're doing. You know that. Yeah. You gotta watch what you're doing. Yeah. You got to watch what you're doing. Oh. You gotta watch out.
Larry Norman's extraordinary career has included stints with Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and members of the Rolling Stones. Since the days when all rock and roll was regarded with suspicion by the church, he has worked unstintingly at his musical ministry.
Like right now I'm working with Steve Jones of the Sex Pistols and one of the guys in Duran Duran.
What are you doing?
I'm in the studio and I let them play on stuff once in a while, and then when we go out to restaurants I talk to them and they laugh and say, you never give up, you know, you're always talking to me about Jesus, but they don't stop me. When I was 9 I started performing publicly, but it was never with the idea of making an album. I wanted to be of use on earth. I wanted to be, in my limited imagination as a 9-year-old, I wanted to be a missionary. I wanted to be an evangelist or something. And at the age of 9, you're not ready to begin your ministry. I mean, you know, Christ didn't begin his until 30. John the Baptist didn't begin his until 30. In the Jewish tradition, you weren't permitted to have public ministry until you were 30 because you weren't mature. But when I was 9, I wanted to do something good for people. I wanted to help bring some peace to the world. I want to help save the world, or however a 9-year-old would conceptualize it. So yeah, I talk about a lot of things because basically I'm not up there to make sure they have a good time and that they buy my records afterwards. I'm up there to try to talk some ordinary sense, but Christian sense, about things that are in the news.
In trying to listen to the message of a lot of Christian rock bands these days, I get the impression that they're written for people who are not Christians, and it's not music for the converted Christian, but music for the person who's looking to be converted.
If you analyze the lyrics, it's not presented in a way that's psychologically profound enough to engage the attention of a non-Christian. It's really for Christians. And even if they say, don't you think it's about time you change your ways, that if you keep on doing this for many more days, that you're going to get into a troublesome phase. I mean, it's all objectivizing and throwing the message at what they consider the non-believer instead of getting inside the message and being the message in a way that they're listening and they're not even aware that you're talking to them. They're going, yeah, man, this makes sense. I agree with all this stuff. Instead, we keep them separate, and they're going, well, I don't know if I believe this. So I don't think it does reach the non-Christians.